Hey, hello, and welcome to another stream where we will read Some Soldier's Life. And you might hear that Willow is upset because she's extremely excited to read A Soldier's Life. No. There she is in the little corner. Yeah, because I have filled her squirrel thingy, which looks like this. It has a tail. This whole wait. This whole thingy beeps. And then it has a tiny one. It just looks like this. It had ears. I don't know if you can see. It had ears here, 2 ears, but I had to cut them off. I had to cut the ears off because she kept trying to eat them. But now I have put treats. You can open the squirrel like this. So there's a ball in there. And then I pushed treats. I don't know if you can see. There. And I'm going to see if she can figure it out. I've done this once before, but I think I pushed the treats a little bit too far, like a little bit too deep, so she didn't really get it. Hey, you see? Good girl. She has something to do. Let's see if she gets it or not. But while she is doing that, we are going to read Some Soldier's Life, continuing from yesterday. 2 more chapters, fresh new chapters for us. So we'll just drink. We're also a bit tired because we were on a 3-hour walk yesterday and the fucking sun, 28, 30 degrees. So we're a bit dead. Oh my god. And I noticed in editing yesterday that I was like, oh, I forgot to say we'll see next time. And I was like, no! That's the thing. I didn't say the thing. Anyway. Last time on A Soldier's Life, we barely escaped 3 spicy scenes. Someone was in a mood the last 2 chapters. Let's see if it continues today. But otherwise, what happened was that Eric came back to the mage college. Some shit about essences. He went out on the town, bought some hot nuts for him and his friends. Then he got his ring revealed to be some type of thing, the charm thing that he was like, Sina, you can have it. Bring me other essences for this if you can, for illusion or mind or whatever the fuck it is. Illusion essences or something. And she was like, are you crazy? I will do my best. And he got something else as well. Something that had to do about other channeling or some shit. I don't even remember if he kept it or not. Right, and then he went to the guild, got some chalice revealed that it can make some elf wine or some shit. So it was also like, okay, whatever. Came back home, slapped by Rena. Oh yeah, that's now. Yeah, they probably had sex or some shit. Fuck do I know. And here we are. So let's see if they did or not, I guess. Let's go. Chapter 207. Bibliophile. Ooh, that's Eric. Rena definitely preferred to be on top. Okay, we're continuing. Fuck me. It wasn't her first time either. I untangled her pale limbs from me, and she grumbled something I hadn't caught. I slid off the weasel pelt, covering my small bed, and dressed. Okay, they definitely. But I at least did not have to be there and narrate. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Rena had to be hungry and was definitely thirsty after all the sweating. Oh my god! It was still hours before dawn, but I could make something special. I planned to make phyllo dough, whatever that is, and used appleberry jam from the dungeon as a filling. I was folding the dough when Suna walked into the kitchen. You feel better now? She asked conspiratorially with a smirk. She sauntered over, took one of the dungeon apples on the counter, and bit into it. I was trying to determine if she meant my little stroll in the city or Rena being in my room. I needed to stretch my legs a bit, I said after a pause. Yeah, because that totally works for both. And Rena's too, apparently, she said with a smirk. I think her eyes were a bit glassy in the light of the glowstone. She had been drinking. At least there was no jealousy in her tone. Is she in trouble? I asked, pausing my work. I knew she was promised to one of the Emperor's sons. For consorting with you? That is unlikely unless she likes to gossip. I do not. Cinna sighed dejectedly, but it appeared fabricated, like she was overreacting. And here I was, spending all my energy trying to help you, and you spend your energy on the young mage. Shit. I think Cinna just implied her help came with strings. I played ignorant or her insinuation. You found someone who will trade for the amulet. I started rolling the dough sheets again, not meeting eyes with the woman. Nothing final, but there were a number of parties interested. The requirement for an Apex channeling essence makes it hard to satisfy your demands. Okay, maybe it was channeling and not fucking illusion or whatever. Cinna stated cheerfully, but I have an offer for 4 Apex quickness essences, 1 Apex channeling essence, 2 fire Apex essences, and 1 earth essence. It's so hard to say essences and essence so many fucking times that I wrote something. That is only 8 Apex essences. Why are there fire essences included? I asked, confused. I would actually take that offer immediately, as all I needed was a channeling essence to completely heal myself. I told you I am negotiating for you, but they think I am the one who will be consuming the essences. Fire makes sense to leverage against me. Give me time, and I should be able to squeeze a few more essences out of the Duke. Senna smiled widely. I think she was fine with me choosing Rena over her, but it was really Rena forcing herself on me. Okay, so now it's a rape. At least that is what I was telling myself. I mean, like, if it was actually Rena, so, like, I can totally fuck Senna, because it was Rena who wanted to fuck me. She was the one, so she cannot be angry with me. What is this bullshit? An unpleasant thought occurred to me. Which Duke? I do not have much time before Cornelius calls me for the hounds. I was spreading the jam and folding the dough in a pattern over it in preparation for baking. over the preparation. I don't know. Cinna used her finger to sample the jam, took the jam jar, and spooned a serving into a bowl. She moaned in satisfaction with the taste of the jam. What is happening? Duke Tiberius. He is currently leading the Eastern armies against the Barduradians. Unsurprisingly, he has a number of essences come into his possession. I winced as I knew that meant he was probably harvesting the dead Barduradian mages and soldiers. I shouldn't be squeamish, as I had done the same myself, right? Many a times. Can you make the deal soon? I asked the fire mage. She cleaned the spoon in her mouth, slowly removing the sweet savory jelly with her tongue. What is this? Why am I reading like softcore spice? What is happening? I could, but if you wait, I can get you more Apex essences, Cinna replied, licking her lips. What is it? Fan fiction. Also, you should know that Duke Tiberius is the grandfather of the twins Ona and Cassius. He dotes on Ona, and I would not be surprised if it were a gift for her coming 17th birthday. Otherwise, his acquisition of the amulet makes no sense, since he has no affinity for charm magic himself. Ona is not a first citizen, just her brother. Didn't you say Ona was trying to get me to be her personal guard? Boy, how much does it take to satiate your lust? Cinna teased, leaning forward. I would advise you to keep your distance. Renna should have told you she is just as malicious as her brother. Don't let the comely facade fool you. That girl is more deadly than a red-bellied viper. Besides, if you get close to her, her brother may become jealous. Right, because Eric thought she was hot the last time. It feels weird because it feels like I think because these are in school, and he is their teacher's bodyguard, it just feels like he's like creeping on children a bit, and I don't like it. She said the last with implications and a wink. Are the two of them? I was not. I stopped talking because I did not want to know. What happens behind closed doors among first citizens stays behind closed. Wait, is she insinuating that? Wait, are the two of them? Wait, what? The twins? Are the twins fucking? What? Why would? What? Is that what she means? Is that what they're trying to make me think? The hell? Okay. What happens behind closed doors among first citizens stays behind closed doors. She said, leaning forward further, and I could smell the faint odor of alcohol. This is full on fucking Game of Thrones now. Was Cinna drinking before sunrise? It would explain her colorful demeanor. There was silence for a time as I worked, and Cinna ate more dungeon jam. What about an arcane armor amulet? I was getting the uncomfortable feeling Cinna had been expecting to be in Renna's place last night. Yeah, we've already been through this. It is best not to muddy the water of the trade with that. I can get you a simple one for a few hundred gold. She exhaled close to me, and she had definitely been drinking. I produced a potion and a morning glory stem and extended it to her. She took them, recognizing them and sighing heavily as she broke the seal on the weak cure poison potion. The cure poison needed the morning glory as a chaser to prevent an instant hangover. She crushed the stem and sucked the sap loudly. Cinna sucked her teeth as dry mouth was an after effect. Your skills in alchemy are better than I thought. I've definitely been underutilizing your skill set. She sat back in the chair as the potion did its work. Her flirtatious body language started to recede as she regained some composure. I deflected the praise, but my high school chemistry would have been amazed. Would have been amazed at my sudden attention to detail in the lab. It is mostly the quality of ingredients I am sent. Do you think I have a few hundred gold? How much is platinum worth? She froze, studying me. Of course you have platinum, she said incredulously with a humorous smirk. Did you find the king's vault in Caelora and not tell Castile? Emperor Maximus Marcellus sent 4 campaigns into the Spectre City, and they all failed to find substantial wealth. She poured herself some water. No, is there a king's treasure in the city? Is that why the Adventurers Guild has not been informed of the Shimmering Labyrinth? I asked as I moved the finished pastries to the oven. I placed the 7 platinum spheres on the counter. Cinna picked them up and inspected them. Ring ingots blank, if I am not mistaken. Cinna shook her head in disbelief. Over 1,000 gold worth, if I'm not mistaken. You should know when to keep your secrets, Eric. She emphasized my name. She swept up the spheres. The Emperor is too busy with the Titan ruins, but now that he knows the Kettle of Souls can prevent the specters from reconstituting, he has plans for the city and the dungeon. After the city had been conquered and stripped, he will inform the Adventurers Guild of the dungeon in time. I nodded and thought that perhaps my knowledge of the dungeon was another reason Sin had not wanted me to wander the city. Once again, it made me worry about the company and the loudmouths among them. Maybe they had been promised something for their silence. They did get to keep their runic weapons. I turned the conversation back to the trade for the amulet. Major essences of channeling would be fine too. Anything to help with my burn. Even just one major essence for channeling would solve my problem, but Cinna didn't need to know that. I do not need the fire essences, so you can have them if they are included in the trade. Good. I won't have to ask you for them. She laughed happily and suddenly stopped. I followed her gaze to Renna, who was wearing just my oversized shirt. Her eyes flitted to Cinna, then me, and back to Cinna. Her nervousness was evident. Cinna's face was impassive, as she said, I want half of those pastries in the oven. She looked at Renna till she blushed. Which one? Renna, I would assume. You can skip classes today and take Eric to view any of the books in the libraries. If he damages something, the curator will hold you responsible, Mage Renna. Yes, Chancellor, she nodded obediently. I will see about completing the trade. Cinna stood and left the kitchen. Renna was tense until she left. God. Renna came and sat next to me as I started making breakfast to go with the pastries. Is she angry with me? I skipped the midday meal to sneak up here. I broke the lockdown rules, Renna said nervously. If anything, she's mad at me, but I think she will avoid burning either of us to a crisp. I whisked some eggs, milk, and cheese together as the kitchen filled with the smell of the baking pastries. Renna was hungry after last night and ate 2 Legionnaire-sized portions. I sprinkled some large sugar crystals on the fresh pastries, and I had to stop her from eating all 6, saving 3 for Cinna. So you want to read in the library all day? Renna asked with a pouty face. Cinna said I didn't have to go to classes. Yes, but perhaps after we bathe. We both smell offensive, I said as I continued to make her breakfast. Offensive. After an extended bath, Renna happily escorted me to the library. The library I had chosen to explore was the bestiary. The curator had a foul expression the entire time I paged through book after book. Obviously, I couldn't read that fast, so she probably assumed I was only looking at the pictures. Wow. I accidentally tore one aged page when I paged too fast, and thankfully, the hawkish curator hadn't noticed. I was sure she would have kicked me out on the spot if she did. Renna got impatient with me and eventually paged through a few books on her own. Adding this knowledge to the Dreamscape amulet would take weeks, but would be invaluable in the future. The contents of books offered a variety of information on creatures from all across Desia, from the glacial north to both massive continents. Most of the information focused on finding the creatures. Still, there were notes on tracking them, their preferred habitat, behavior, hunting, diet preferences, life cycles, and harvestables. Some, but not all, of the compendiums even had the likely essence the creature would yield with the collector. Some creatures had more than one tome as well. Getting through everything in one day was going to be near impossible. I worked through the midday and handed Renna a burrito, which had the curator yelling at both of us for eating in the library. When the dinner bell rang, Renna looked uncertain. The old curator had stayed in the library the entire day. 12 hours had gotten me through half of the collection. You should return to your room for the night, I said, putting down a book on Orcish customs of the Caliphate. The fact that orcs were in the bestiary said a lot of what the Tellians thought about them. Yeah, that's true. Renna leaned into me and whispered, I can stay with you tonight. I was tempted, but I guess the Mage College had eyes and ears everywhere. Rena had been too familiar with me, and I assumed the curator had observed her wandering hands during the day when she was close to me. No, we have time yet. Best not to draw attention to us. A disappointed Rena left me to retire to her own room. The tired curator tapped her foot impatiently on the floor. Can I continue under your supervision? I asked helpfully. No, that is not what I agreed to with the Chancellor. I don't have time to watch you. I decided not to point out that she had, in fact, watched me all day. When I reached the Chancellor's suite, I started to prepare Cinna's dinner and smirked when I noticed the pastries were gone. As the scent of cooking spread, Cinna joined me in the kitchen. Did you have a productive day? Yes, I got through half of the bestiaries in the library, I responded. Half? The Dreamscape amulet, then. I guess it is good to have the memory to draw on when you enter the amulet, Cinna said contemplatively. Her statement caused me to ask a favor. Could you get me a book on how to use the Dreamscape amulet? Cinna looked slightly surprised at the request. I assumed you were familiar with it. Are you not using it every night? Almost every night, yes, but I was self-taught in its use. Perhaps I could be more efficient with my time, I responded thoughtfully. Cinna shrugged. I will have a copy made. The artifact library is in another tower. Everyone assumed the amulet is in my possession anyway. Cinna checked on what I was making her before talking. I have a new offer for the Charm Affinity amulet. Duke Tiberius has offered 4 Apex Quickness essences, 1 Apex Channeling essence, 2 Fire Apex essences, 1 Earth essence, 1 Major Channeling essence, and 4 Major Fire essences. I will have your Etheric Armor amulet soon as well. You should have a few large golds left over as well after the exchange. Cinna looked me in the eyes, judging my reaction. Do it, I said without hesitation. If you waited, we might harvest another Apex Channeling essence on the war front, Cinna offered. No. How long until the exchange can be completed? A day. The portals are very active to march in both directions. I will send a message to Duke Tiberius tonight. Cinna hedged briefly before adding. The amulet is going to Mage Ona. I thought you should know. It will raise her charm affinity by 15 relative points. Cinna said, and my eyes bulged. That would be about a 180% increase in charm affinity power, almost tripling her power in the charm affinity. Mage Ona is not weak in the charm affinity. This amulet will make her much stronger. Maybe strong enough to get her father to acknowledge her and pay the cost for her first citizen ascension. The cost for her ascension. Oh. Why doesn't Duke Tiberius pay for his grandfather's and then you move. Of course you move. You little. Fine, I'll keep it. Why doesn't Duke Tiberius pay for her granddaughter's first citizenship if he favors her so much? I asked, not understanding the social dynamics. Only the father can sponsor a child. If the father is dead, the mother can sponsor. If both parents are dead, then only the emperor can sponsor. Cassius is the favored child of Baron Erebus Severna, Cinna explained patiently. The Baron is heavily invested in Cassius and expects Ona to support him unconditionally. Putting them in equal social standing would undermine that expectation. That made me feel some pity for Mage Ona. I was more worried for Rena by strengthening one of her enemies. Can you protect Rena from them? I asked Cinna seriously. Probably not, I would assume. They will not touch her. All the students have been warned that they will be harshly disciplined for any mischief. The Empire needs every capable mage. The city has been turned upside down, searching for infiltrators of the Caliphate, Essenham Elves, and Barbaradians. The number found has raised concerns. They knew we were testing the young mages at Knoll Gardens. It was not a chance attack, Cinna affirmed. Cinna's reassurance felt a little hollow, considering my impression of the first citizens to date. Can I return to practicing at the Imperial Legion Hall? All guard posts have been doubled. There is no one to practice with, but I will say you represent me well, Cinna smiled. Can I visit Ignis? I wasn't allowed into the Imperial grounds, I asked. Cinna considered before responding. No, but I will escort you in the morning to see her unless you just want to send your armor to her for repairs. Cinna started eating my attempt at beef stroganoff. Why beef stroganoff? No. The Empire was being squeezed. I was sure the regular citizens didn't have the same access to information as I did, but you could feel it in the air. I will clean up in the morning, I indicated the plates. And Cinna, thank you, I said with genuine sentiment. I think I saw a slight shadow of guilt cross her face, but I might have been imagining it as it disappeared in the blink of my eyes. Probably not. I headed to my small room as I had a lot to do in the dreamscape tonight. Why is she... What does she feel guilty about? Because he actually said thank you. He's like, I've been mean. Just because I wanted to fuck you. But... Chapter 208. Voided Warranty. I secured the window and door, the scent of the previous night's adventures lingering in the air. He's never gonna drop this, is he? Settling into the weasel pelts, I prepared to delve into my research. My evening in the dreamscape was going to be busy. The shelves were still missing hundreds of books, waiting to be filled with newly previewed knowledge. As I traversed the dreamscape, I ignored the grumblings of the manifestations and created a whole shelf of books from the bestiary I had paged through earlier today. There were about 25 books in total, well past my normal limit of 10. Most of these books focused on the Boughton Caliphate orcs. Bhutan? The fact that they were included in the bestiary told me what the Empire thought of the orcs. Yes, we knew this. Next, I added a few books on the Void Affinity spellforms. I'm sorry, I'm yawning. Whoa. A subject I had been eager to explore. With my Void Affinity score of 22, I was hopeful that I might find a useful spell form to imprint. This was a unique opportunity, marking the first time I had access to this Rarity Affinities spell form. Even in the dreamscape, I could feel the pressure of a headache. I hadn't pulled so much knowledge in a long time, if ever. I gave Oscar a pat. Literally forgot he existed. Hi, Oscar. I'll be back in a minute. I exited the dreamscape before I reviewed anything. I had planned to return as soon as my migraine subsided, but instead it just settles into a steady throbbing pain behind the eyes. While I was lying there in modest pain, I took out 2 essences, the Major Illusion Essence and a Major Dexterity Essence. While battling my migraine, I relaxed and focused on the essences as they worked through my body, one after the other. Hopefully, after I received the Apex Channeling Essences, I would not have to deal with the painful ether burn any longer. An hour passed, and the headache was fading slowly, but not going away, so I returned to the dreamscape. Oscar barked, jumped, and ran to get the ball. Even though he was not real, I felt guilty, so I tossed the ball a few times before heading back to the growing library. I had been hoping to add dozens of books tonight, but that was not in the cards after that experience. I pulled the 2 books I had created on the minor void spell forms. There were 5 that I could access with my 22 affinity, unless I started killing void mages and using the collector on them. I would prefer not to encounter any creature that yielded a void affinity. This was most likely going to be the limit of my strength in the void affinity. Void magic apparently had one unique property. The void. It was much easier to overcome a person's ether resistance and use it on a person. The reasoning seemed to be shadowed in mystery, with the prevailing theory being that void magic didn't have substance, making it difficult for a person to resist its effects. Ooh. It was clear why the Emperor was feared. If he had a high affinity for the void, he could make people literally disappear. My dimensional space could do that as well, but I had to overcome my target's resistances. My range was limited, my ether always bottomed out, and I had a finite space. Skimming to some of the more powerful spell forms requiring a 70 affinity or higher just sounded scary. Annihilating Wave, Banishment, Mind Blank, and Abyssal Hole. Damn. Even the mid-tier spell forms sounded deadly. Warped Lightning, Confinement, Memory Theft, Chaos Storm, and Disintegration. Whatever their plans were to remove the Emperor, I planned to be far away when they confronted him. The 5 lesser spell forms I could imprint were Banish Object, 10, Cleanse, 15, Purify Self, 20, Fatigue, 20, Erase Memory, 20. Banish Object was the simplest spell form. It allowed you to remove something from existence. Forever. Yeah, so totally simple. Whatever the target was, it was irretrievable. With a 10 affinity, the size was just a 3-inch cube, but it would double volume every 10 points of affinity. At an 80 affinity, that would be a 19-inch cube. This low-tier spell was not designed to overpower other resistance, so it was useless to use on people or artifacts. Cleanse was a cleaning spell form. Cleaning. It eliminated all material in contact with your skin, including clothes. A way to avoid bathing for the rest of your life. There was an entry under the spell form of a particular mage who fought barehanded and destroyed armor and weapons using his spell form by focusing the spell form through his fists. You should never underestimate magic's potential. I will admit that Purify Self was appealing. It could eliminate poison and diseases, and even cleanse your bowels. Hell yeah. The spell focused only on the mage's internal state, removing any foreign material. Having a higher affinity would only speed up the process. Never being susceptible to poison or disease would be a huge advantage. I'd almost died from a death dog and seemed to encounter a lot of spiders. Fatigue seems more impractical to me. It created a field in front of the caster, draining everyone's energy. Not etheric energy, just muscular energy. It could turn a battle by making the targets too weak to fight effectively, but I thought it useless since the spell didn't differentiate between ally and foe. The higher the void affinity, the larger the area of effect, but still, the mage had to be on the front lines and would make a tempting target. Erase Memory was the other spell form that drew my attention. With a 20 affinity, the target would forget everything that had happened in the last 10 minutes. The length of time doubled with every 10 affinity attribute points. Imagine how many women he can fuck if he does that. And Eric likes that. Yay! The length of time doubled with every 10 affinity attribute points. I could see the use of this spell if I needed to make someone forget what I had just done, like kill a giant without touching them. The more advanced spell form was Memory Theft, which allowed the mage to remove a specific memory from the target. The only spell form that made sense was Purify Self. It would complement my healing spell form, and I wouldn't have to fear being poisoned or diseased. I still wouldn't want to fight the giant hairy arachnids, but at least if I made a mistake when it inevitably happened, I would be fine. I perused the spell form for Purify Self a few times, but the throbbing headache in the background didn't allow me to focus. The remainder of my night was sparring against the orcs with Constantine. Maybe I missed him a little, and working together on the same side was not so bad. For some reason, the Dreamscape Constantine still thought it his job to correct everything I did constantly. I had stayed in the Dreamscape longer than normal, and Cinna was already up as I headed to the balcony. Dress in your parade armor. We can visit Ignis now. I paused. Is anything wrong? No. There were a lot of messages last night across the Empire, but there were no developments. That is expected to change when they resume excavating Atlantium in a few weeks. We are now fairly certain the Caliphate will be focused on the Western Empire, while Essenhem and Bardaradium focus on the Lost City. The leaders have a loose agreement in place against us, but no formal alliance. Cinna stood and smoothed her chancellor robes. Any word from Cornelius? I asked, before I went and donned the ceremonial armor. Soon. He will call on you soon. It will most likely be abbreviated training as well, as we desperately need scouts and sentries. The last I heard from him, he was scouting locations to move the training He was scouting locations to move the training to, since Knoll Garden is now known to the orcs and elves. Okay. Whew. I nodded and handed Cinna a loaf of caramel bread from my space. It was still warm, and I added candied dungeon apples to it. She shook her head, amused and smiling as she gratefully took it. I had been saving that for a special occasion, but it looked like Cinna needed it more right now. It wasn't long before we were headed to the Imperial Legion Hall. I had my face plate on and carried my resin hide armor in a sack. Cinna, in her Chancellor robes, was never questioned as we passed from the Mage College to the Imperial grounds. There were definitely more Imperial Legionnaires around the grounds escorting numerous figures. It almost looked like someone was paranoid that an assassin could be anywhere. The training yard, like Cinna predicted, had almost no one. 3 legionnaires went through sword forms in the armor, and another did the same with a spear. The Legion Hall smithy was already loud, even just after sunrise. I began to have doubts that Ignis would have time to work on my armor. Ignis' grey hair was matted to her head with sweat as she shaped a cuirass. The other smiths had paused their work as the Chancellor walked the strength of their workshop. Ignis saw her, but didn't stop her work until Cinna reached her. Another favor, Fire Witch? A few armor smiths recoiled and sought to get behind their anvils for protection. Why else would I visit you here? Cinna said, amused, and not angry with the informality. She motioned for me to present the armor. My armor took a little damage, I said, while unpacking it from the canvas bag. She was already frowning, seeing it was resin hide. She shook her head as she looked it over, grunting as she examined the hole above the heart. You were wearing this when it was damaged. She didn't look up as she took blue chalk and marked the cosmetic and more serious repairs requiring the resin hide to be heated and formed into the proper shape and then patched. 6 days, Ignis finally said. Don't know why he needs it. He's wearing a perfectly good set of metal armor. We need it in 2 days. Wow. He's being recruited. He is being recruited to serve the hounds, Cinna said. Ignis looked up, flabbergasted. Why would he want to do that? She shook her head at me like she was a disappointed mother. They have their own armor anyway. Why would he need this? I placed an elvish tome on her anvil. It was one of the thicker tomes in the collection, but it was not a tome of skills in the craft. Instead, it was a beautifully illustrated book of lithograph plates with pictures of masterworks. Ignis was already stupefied by the 4th plate she turned. Back to work. This is my business, Vincent. Ignis barked at the armor smith, who was edging closer. Ignis' eyes glazed over as she paged through it. Can you get it done in 2 days? I asked, but the images continued to enthrall her. After minutes, she finally said, You can learn a few things from this one Fire Witch. He knows favors go both ways. Cinna arched an eyebrow, and your grandson being accepted on a full scholarship to the Collegium Scholarium was not a favor. Ignis waved her hand. Fine, fine. Who needs sleep anyway? I will have his armor tomorrow. Tomorrow. Can you get a sheath for this too? I want to give it as a gift. I placed the orcish runic short sword on the anvil. Vol. Cinna arched an eyebrow but didn't comment as Ignis tested the sword. A gift? She said to no one as she swung the sword into her burlap sack. It thudded loudly. Artifice to be light except on striking. A good weapon. I nodded like I already knew that. So it was more effectual than I had assumed. Still, Renna would need it more than me, and I had a few days to teach her how to wield it. Not a problem. Fancy or plain? It is for a new mage. Something plain she can carry if she ends up leading a company, I responded. Ignis nodded and racked the blade. She shooed us away, while complaining I was stealing her sleep, but she wrapped the elvish tome like it was a newborn. As we left, the noise of hammers returned to his cadence. I like Ignis a lot. She's a good character. Clear of the noise, Cinna increased her pace. We were soon back at the Mage College and climbing the steps of another tower. Cinna entered a library on the 3rd floor. A surprised curator stumbled on seeing Cinna. Do you have a copy of the Dreamscape manuscript for me? I'm sorry, Chancellor. I have not gotten around to it. Chancellor Evander said I had till dinner bell. Standing next to Cinna, I could feel the air get warmer and see it shimmer from heat. By lunch. I can get it to you by lunch. I can pull a mage scribe to the task. I will personally deliver it to your apartment, he said, bowing for forgiveness. Cinna harumphed and spun. I followed her back to her classroom in the War College. Her class was due to start soon. You could return to the apartments. Make something good like last night for dinner. Rena will be by to supervise your book fetish after the midday meal. The curator from yesterday is gossiping, so make sure she returns to her room after sunset and have her show some restraint in the library. I nodded to her in thanks and retreated. I spent what remained of the morning training and prepping dinner. I was planning to serve meat buns, one of the local recipes I had been given. It was probably commoner food, but Cinna preferred it that way. A nervous knock attacked the common room door as the midday bells rang. How can a nervous knock attack? The curator. Oh, sorry. The curator was sweating and breathing heavily as he held out a fresh leather-bound manuscript. I assumed it was copied by magic and not by hand. I wondered if the technology of the printing press existed anywhere in Desia. He was glad to hand off the manuscript and dashed down the stairs, not realizing Cinna was not there. I paged through the manuscript slowly, and the pages were brilliantly white with the dark text. The penmanship was extremely neat, like most books I had seen. The door was still open as Rena stumbled into the room, winded from climbing the stairs. She slammed the door behind her. Wow. Is Cinna here? No, she won't. I didn't finish as she wrapped her arms around me, and we kissed passionately for a minute. I had to pry her away. God. We need to get down to the library. I only have the afternoon to look at the books, I explained. What are you going to learn in an afternoon? She pouted as she collapsed on the sofa. What I might learn is something that may save my life one day, I said seriously as I moved to the door. But all you do is page through the books. We can have more fun here. But I suppose I can wait till tonight. She huffed and stood. I didn't have the heart to tell her she was not returning here after the library. You should tell her now. She will only get more pissed. Why didn't you say it earlier? Eric! We could always find time tomorrow. The curator grumbled the entire time I worked. I kept Rena at arm's length, explained why, and worked through the books with urgency. Half a day more in this library. I would have all the books. As the dinner bell sounded, I broke the news to Rena. You should get to dinner. I will see you tomorrow. Rena had a displeased countenance as she left the library. I was just as unhappy about the circumstances as she was, but I trusted Cinna's judgment. I climbed the stairs and put the meat buns in the oven to bake while I finished paging through the Dreamscape manuscript. I read as I went. Dreamscape amulets were exclusively dungeon artifacts. They were too complex to be artificed, which added immensely to their value. The first 3 chapters detailed manifesting items inside the dreamscape. There was no new information. I thought it did much better than the text explained. There were numerous warnings about incorporating too much at once, or items that were too complex. Migraines could last weeks if the mage overextended in the dreamscape. Ouch. The next few pages talked about the environment and controlling weather. Cinna walked into the kitchen carrying a bag and smiling. I see you got the tutorial manuscript. I have the essences. She inhaled the scent of dough and meat. Boar and bear meat buns, I revealed. She nodded appreciatively and placed the bag on the counter. She fished 20 large pieces of gold out of her pocket. The arcane armor amulet will be delivered in a few days. It is coming from a retired war mage. He's probably making a mistake, as the Emperor will recall him to serve when the elves or orcs intensify their efforts. So what did you get for the charm amulet? I asked, more than a little eager to see. I could tell she was stalling for dramatic effect. I think you will be happy. The fire mage got a large bowl and slowly emptied the essences into it. Oh, okay. I thought you got a bowl of food. I was like, no, not into the soup. Not that it was soup. Okay. A whole bowl full of essences. That sounds like good shit if it's not a small. It says it's a large bowl. Okay. Well, that's a hell of a lot of essences. More than half of them are fire essences, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Oops, I will take all of these." Nah, she's not that mean. She's not mean. at all, actually. She's not mean. I like Senna. She's funny. I like her a lot. Well, okay. That was the two shafters. Hella nice. Hella nice. Um. Mm, yeah, I like Senna. We will see what essences he gets next time. Oh yeah, I remember to say it this time. Oh. I'm thinking about if I should continue or not. That is the question. Wait, puppy on the floor. I have to think. Yeah, we can probably do a little bit of shine hunting. It's been a while. I just have to plug in all the thingies. Right. Okay. I will quickly restart then, so I can get the VOD. Okay, well, thank you for watching the VOD. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the VOD. Now you will not be able to see this VOD, but live there is something. Yay! Okay, restarting. Thank you. Bye, YouTube.